Your career is solving a problem. The question is, what is that problem? Okay. So instead of thinking of your career as, or your job right now as a culmination of different tasks. I'm put on this project, I'm put on that project, I'm just waking up every day, going to work, I've got a boss, I've got people that work with me. Instead of you thinking about it like that, why don't you think about it like this organization, this team had a problem. They could not solve it themselves. So they hired me. So instead of thinking about it from a job description kind of perspective, you want to think about it as there is a problem or there was a problem. No one in the organization could fill that gap, and I was hired to fill that gap. The question is, what is that problem? You cannot be effective and efficient doing your work if you don't understand this fundamental perspective of this fundamental idea when it comes to your career. I don't think you can effectively give yourself to your job or give yourself to your career if you don't understand it. What problem is your career solving? What do you do? What is the problem that you are solving? Who is helping me, or who are the people that have been positioned, have also been hired to support me to effectively deliver on that problem? Who am I hired to support? Do you know the person you're supporting? Because some people don't even know what their boss is. It depends on how your organization is structured. Some people don't even know who their boss is. Some people will leave who is supposed to be their immediate boss, and they'll be answering to another person who is not necessarily the person that will be appraising them or anything, just because of the way the environment is structured. It happens. So if you understand the problem you've been hired to solve, you understand the people you need to support, because sometimes your work may not necessarily be to solve a problem directly. It may be that another person has been hired to solve that problem, but that person needs support in order to solve that problem. So if you've been hired to support someone, the question is, are you doing enough to lighten their load? Because you need to know. If you think about it from that perspective, like I'm in a problem solving mode, or I'm in a mode where I need to identify who I am here to help. If you know that, the question is, are you helping them enough? Because a lot of guys focus on mundane things. They focus on, oh, they asked me to do this, so I'm just going to do this. They asked me to do that, so I'm like, no, sit down. Think about it and say, it must be that this person is too busy to do A, B, C, D, E. So I've been brought on board to assist him to do A, B, C, D, E. What must I do to make sure that person I'm supporting is not overly worried about A, B, C, D, E? So there is a level of obsession you should have with your career, and that obsession starts with understanding why you're there and what you're doing there. If you don't understand what you're doing there, you will be mostly unhappy, you will be mostly complaining, and you will just not find the level of joy you need to find in your career. Truth. Okay, so if I were to mentor you right now in terms of giving you clarity about your career, is one of the things I would really love to talk about with you, right? So you need to go deep down into the foundation of this and understand what you're there to do. Now, let me paint you a very practical example. So you are in, for instance, the finance department that has probably a financial controller or a CFO, probably has a CFO, and you've been brought on board as the FC, right? What you want to think about is, what am I expected to do in this role? And what is the main problem? The main problem is, when it comes to the financial matters of this organization, we always want to meet the end goal that we have set. In terms of finances, we want to meet all our financial strategy. We want to make sure that we are not falling behind when it comes to regulatory deadlines, right? We want to make sure that our cash flow is properly monitored and our burnout rate is not out of or out of the roof such that we are struggling. We want the directors of the business to be consistently made aware of whatever financial issues is going on, right? We want sufficient cash flows from time to time, and where that is not happening, we want that to be called out. Okay, you want to understand the impact. You want to be able to explain to those governing the business the impact of the financial impact of every decision they make, especially non-financial decisions they make. Those are the pain points, right? So if you then translate that back into your work, what are the daily things you now need to do to address those pain points? Don't say, oh, it's month end, we are doing our bank reconciliation. You're not doing bank reconciliation. You're just making sure that you're preparing management accounts in terms of information for those governing the business to be able to make financial and non-financial decisions that will help the company continue to stay strategic and remain competitive and remain profitable, and for it to meet all its mission and objectives and vision and everything. You're not doing bank reconciliation. That's what you're doing. Do you see how understanding the fundamentals of your job, do you see how that can change your perspective? In terms of managing, you're there to support someone, for instance. If you're there to support, let's say you're working with a director, for instance, and you're there to support him in his mission. Part of the things you want to think about is, what does this person want done that will give them rest? You don't want to send your boss home for the weekend. Instead of him to enjoy the downtime with his family and have a nice rest, he's just thinking about that project that he has handed off to you that does not look like he's moving, because you're not even telling him anything about the project anyways. So you want to put yourself in their shoes. You want to put yourself in their shoes. You want to really sort of say, if I were the most senior person on this team, what would I be doing? Yeah. That's one question that will change your career. It will change the game. So, for instance, you are an analyst, right? There to support an associate. And you see yourself on that team. Probably that team is probably led by a VP, for instance. But the main person you're working with is an associate, and the associate has their own responsibilities. The question is, how do you fit into that responsibility? How can you make sure that if that associate doesn't even talk to you in another week, your work keeps getting done and you're delivering excellence? How? Okay? So part of it is you want to think, if I was the most senior person on this team, what would I do right now? What would I do right now? That's what you should be doing. Because at the end of the day, you have what it takes to make informed decisions. You have what it takes to do the right thing, to deliver on your productivity, to efficiently deliver. You have what it takes. You just need to put things into proper perspective. Instead of saying, oh, I'm just going to this job again. No, you need to understand the problem your career is solving. You also need to understand that you are a company on your own. You are an organization on your own, and you are selling your service. Your skill set, your knowledge, your exposure, your time, all of that put together, you are selling. You're putting it together to sell a service to your organization. So what you're doing is you are selling a service. That's what you're doing. You're selling a service. So having that at the back of your mind, do you not want to sell top-notch service to your customer? That is your organization, your employer. Do you not want to do that? If you were selling, if you had clients, if you had customers, do you not want to sell top-notch service to them? Isn't that what you want to do? So you want to assess your contribution to your organization, and you want to assess it in a very, very objective way. Okay? That's what you want to do. You want to challenge the skill set you have right now. Is it enough? Is it doing enough? Am I still qualified for the work that I do? Am I able to touch on the pain points of my organization? Am I solving the problem they initially brought me in for? Or are they having to look out again to bring somebody else to help them solve that same problem? Because some people are in that position actually. Okay? So it's not everybody that would think about these things that I'm putting out for you, but I want you to go and think about it. Now, a lot of people cry about, oh, they're doing so much for the organization, but the organization is not recognizing it. There are two things. Number one, everything you're doing for your organization, as long as it's meaningful, you are the first benefactor of it. Okay? You are the first benefactor of it. Your work works more on you than you work on it. The more new things you're doing, the more exposure you get, the more experience you get, the more your skill set, the more your knowledge, the higher your market value, the higher your value in the marketplace, and you get to be paid more for the work that you do. So your work that you do works more on you than you work on it. So thinking in that way, you know that every opportunity you have to continue to think positively about the work you do, except that work is not meaningful. So for instance, if you're doing the same clerical thing, admin stuff day in, day out, and you're not learning anything new, it doesn't look like your skill set is being improved on, then obviously there are lots of videos I'm going to make or I've made already and that will talk to things you need to do about your work environment. If you're not getting the right skill set or the right training, or you are not getting the right work, you also need to think about it and start thinking, especially if you feel like you've outgrown a particular range. You may start talking about, maybe we need to bring in somebody else, I need to be doing more important stuff, or I need to be strategically placed now. Okay? So instead of being, I just want you to break that autopilot cycle that you're currently in now. It's just my job. Monday we resume. No. You're there to heal. You're there to contribute. You're there to solve a problem. The question is, what is that problem? Okay? Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video.